Saturday, October 16, 2021. This is Mercedes Diesel Guy, and this is my 2005 Toyota Sienna project. Continuing on with work today, for those of you who have been following along, it's been a few weeks since there's been any videos. I was away last weekend, and a couple of weekends ago I was pretty much rained out, and then I had other stuff going on, so I'm just kind of getting back to it now. So today I'm continuing on with the front suspension, which I'm going to be replacing the front struts today. And it's basically, essentially the same job on the passenger side and driver side, but it's my understanding that you have to do a little more to access the top on the driver's side. So I'm going to get into this now, and I'll show you basically how to do this step by step. So the first thing you're going to do, and I'm not going to show this, is you want to loosen the lug nuts on the front wheels. That's loosen, not remove. I find the best way to do that is to loosen them one at a time and then tighten them back down a bit. And then just go over all of them. That way, once you have the vehicle lifted, it'll be pretty easy to loosen them again and remove them all. So I'm going to loosen the lug nuts on the front wheels here. And then I'm going to chock the rear wheels, which is basically step 2. And then I'm going to raise the front end and support it on jack stands. And I'll show you a little bit of that. So let me get to loosening the lug nuts and blocking the rear wheels. Okay, so I'm going handheld with the camera here for a moment, and I have my floor jack in position. And according to the information I found in the owner's manual, this spot that I'm pointing at right here, right underneath the front of the van, is an appropriate lift point for a floor jack. So I've positioned my floor jack underneath that point, and that's where I'm going to be lifting it. And once you have the vehicle raised and on jack stands, you're going to want to make sure it is supported safely. So I gave it a good shake, and I'm confident now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pop the hood. Next, you're going to want to remove the windshield wiper arms. And there's a cap here on the end of each of them. You can either pry that off by hand or wedge your screwdriver underneath there. Next, you want to remove this nut here. In my case, it's 14 millimeter. I do believe that is factory standard. So loosen that, remove the nut, and then the wiper arm should just pull right off. There may be some resistance there, but otherwise there's nothing else holding it on. And in order to make sure the nut does not get lost, you can just thread it back on the post right there. Next, you're going to want to pry up and remove this plastic cowl cover piece here. There are some clips holding it in here at the bottom. You can actually reach a finger underneath and pull the tab forward, and that will release it. It took me a moment to figure that out. So I'm going to release all the clips and then pull this out. In order to do this, there are some 10 millimeter bolts. I'm seeing one here, 2, 3, and 4. I think it's 4 of them. And you need to disconnect this connector here. So I'm going to remove these bolts, and hopefully this should come out of here now. Okay, I'm a little amazed. It actually was just 4 bolts. And now under this pile of leaves and muck, you can see the top of the strut here. Now, there are 3 nuts holding it in at the top. But first I'm going to go down into the wheel well and remove what I need to remove down there. Okay, so there's a couple more things you need to be concerned with here before you actually unbolt the strut from the steering knuckle. There is a plastic bracket here holding the ABS sensor onto the strut, and that just kind of pries off with finger pressure. That's not a problem. But there is a bolt here with a bracket holding the brake hose and the ABS sensor wire to the strut. So you're going to need to remove that bolt, and you're also going to need to remove this nut holding the sway bar link to the strut. And looking, I don't think it's showing in the video, but it looks like I'm also going to have to replace my sway bar links because these look, well, the rubber boots are all cracked, but I'm not sure if there's any play in those, but wouldn't hurt me to replace them. Anyhow, so I'm going to remove this nut here, disconnect the sway bar link from the strut, and I'm going to remove this bolt and disconnect the brake hose and ABS sensor wire from the strut. Okay, so this is a 12mm bolt. Just as a sidebar, for those of you who have been following me for years, you might guess that this is my first Southern vehicle that I've worked on, and I am delighted by the complete lack of rust on this vehicle. Okay, so those are disconnected and out of the way. So now I need to remove this nut and separate the sway bar link from the strut. Okay, this nut, at least in my case, is 17mm, and I can counter hold the post here with an Allen wrench. In this case, I believe it is 5.5mm. So the only thing holding the strut here in at the bottom now are these two nuts and bolts here. You can see one, and the other one's kind of blocked from view. But before I remove those, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a jack here underneath the control arm. And if you don't have a jack, you can just place a big rock or something down there. And the reason I'm doing that is so when I remove the strut, when the control arm falls down a bit, that it doesn't put too much stress on the brake line or the ABS wire. Next, you want to remove the strut to steering knuckle nuts and bolts. These, at least in my case, are 22mm, so I'm going to counter hold the bolt here and remove the nut on the top and the bottom. Next, you're going to want to remove these three nuts here at the top of the strut, holding it into the car. So these are on pretty tight, so I'm going to use a breaker bar here to break them free. The extension is getting in the way of the third one here. And I'll use a standard ratchet arm to remove them the rest of the way. And now you can guide the strut out of the wheel housing. So like I said, I'm not going to show you how to rebuild the strut, because I'm going to be replacing this with a quick strut unit. This is Mercedes Diesel Guy. Thanks for watching.